sound of wind howling softly, footsteps on gravel. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Tonight, I have a story for you that still sends a shiver down my spine whenever I think about it. It's about a trip my friends and I took a few years back, a decision that seemed like a bit of harmless fun at the time, but turned into one of the most unsettling experiences of my life. This is the story of our day in the abandoned Blackwood Cemetery. It all started on a crisp autumn afternoon. The leaves were turning those brilliant shades of orange and red, and there was that specific chill in the air that just begs for an adventure. My friends, Liam, Chloe, and I, were looking for something to do. Something different from our usual weekend routine of movies and video games. That's when Liam brought it up. "Have you guys ever heard of Blackwood Cemetery?" he asked, a mischievous glint in his eye. Of course we had. It was a local legend, a place that was over 200 years old, long since abandoned, and swallowed by the surrounding forest. The stories were the usual small-town folklore, strange lights seen between the trees, whispers carried on the wind when no one was there, the classic stuff. But Liam had a new piece of information. He'd found an old map online that supposedly showed a hidden, older section of the cemetery, one that wasn't on any official records. The explorer in all of us was instantly hooked. A forgotten piece of history, right in our backyard. We had to see it for ourselves. So, we packed some flashlights, even though it was still daytime, a camera, and a copy of the map, and we headed out. The drive itself felt like we were traveling back in time. Paved roads gave way to gravel, which then turned into a barely there dirt track overgrown with weeds. Finally, we saw it. A pair of rusted, wrought-iron gates, half swallowed by ivy, hanging crookedly on crumbling stone pillars. The sign, what was left of it, was illegible, but we knew we were in the right place. There was an eerie silence here, the kind that feels heavy, pressing in on you. The usual sounds of the forest, birds, insects, were completely absent. We pushed through the creaking gates and stepped inside. The atmosphere was immediately different. It was somber, but beautiful in a decaying sort of way. Headstones, tilted at odd angles, were covered in moss and lichen. Some were so old the inscriptions had been completely weathered away. We spent about an hour just wandering through the main part, taking photos, marveling at the age of it all. The sun was warm on our backs, and our initial apprehension started to fade. It just felt like an old, quiet place. But then, Liam pulled out the map. "All right," he said, his voice echoing slightly. "The hidden section should be this way." He pointed towards a dense thicket of trees at the far end of the cemetery, where the woods seemed to reclaim the land. There was no path, so we had to push through thorny bushes and tangled undergrowth. It got darker here, the thick canopy of leaves blocking out most of the sunlight. After about 10 minutes of struggling through the brush, Chloe suddenly stopped. "Guys, look," she whispered. We followed her gaze and saw it. A low stone wall, almost completely hidden by vegetation. We had found it. Stepping over the wall felt like crossing a threshold into another world. This part of the cemetery was far older, far more neglected. The headstones were little more than jagged, moss-covered rocks jutting out from the earth. Many had toppled over completely. And the feeling was different here. The air grew colder, and that heavy silence returned. But this time it felt charged, expectant. It was the kind of quiet that makes the hairs on your arms stand up. We moved slowly, speaking only in whispers. I was trying to get a clear photo of a particularly ancient-looking grave marker when my camera suddenly died. "That's weird," I said, tapping it. "The battery was full." Liam tried his phone. "No signal," he announced. "Not a single bar." A little knot of unease began to form in my stomach. It was probably just the remote location, I told myself, but it didn't feel right. That's when we heard the first sound. It was faint, like the snapping of a twig, coming from deeper within the trees behind us. We all froze, listening. "Probably just an animal," Liam said, though his voice lacked conviction. We tried to brush it off and continued exploring, but we were all on edge now. A few minutes later, we heard it again, closer this time. Snap! It was a distinct, deliberate sound. Not the random rustling of a squirrel. We looked at each other, eyes wide. The sun was beginning to dip lower in the sky, casting long, distorted shadows that danced between the tombstones. The woods around us were growing darker, more menacing. "Okay, this is getting a little creepy," Chloe said, her voice trembling slightly. "Maybe we should head back." We all agreed. The fun of the adventure had completely evaporated, replaced by a growing sense of dread. We turned to leave, but as we did, we heard another noise. This one was different. It wasn't a twig snap. It was a soft, dragging sound. Scrape, scrape, scrape. It sounded like something heavy being pulled slowly across the leafy ground. It was coming from the direction we needed to go to get out. Our hearts were pounding. We stood frozen, paralyzed by fear, straining our ears in the deepening twilight. The scraping stopped. Absolute silence descended again, thicker and more terrifying than before. We didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe. After what felt like an eternity, Liam took a shaky breath. Let's just go," he whispered, quickly and quietly. We started moving, huddled together, our flashlights now cutting sharp, nervous beams through the gloom. Every rustle of leaves under our own feet sounded like a thunderclap. We retraced our steps back towards the low stone wall, our eyes darting into the shadows around us. We were almost there when Chloe let out a small, terrified gasp. "Did you see that?" she whispered, pointing. I swung my flashlight beam in the direction she was pointing. For a split second, I saw it. Or, I think I saw it. A tall, thin shadow, detaching itself from the trunk of a large oak tree and melting back into the darkness. It was there, and then it was gone. I couldn't be sure if my eyes were playing tricks on me, if it was just a shadow, but the primal fear that shot through me was very real. We didn't wait for a second look. We scrambled over that stone wall and broke into a run, crashing through the undergrowth, not caring about the branches scratching our faces and arms. We could hear movement in the woods behind us now, keeping pace with us. It wasn't the sound of an animal. It was heavier, more deliberate. It was the sound of footsteps. We burst out of the thicket and back into the main part of the cemetery, not stopping until we reached the rusted iron gates. We fumbled with the latch, threw the gates open, and spilled out onto the dirt track, gasping for air. We piled into the car, locked the doors, and I floored it, spraying gravel as we sped away. We didn't say a word for the first 10 minutes of the drive, the only sound being our own ragged breathing. When we were finally back on the main road, with streetlights and other cars around us, Chloe finally spoke. "What was that?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. None of us had an answer. We never went back to Blackwood Cemetery. To this day, I don't know what we saw or heard in there. Was it just our overactive imaginations, fueled by ghost stories and the creepy atmosphere? Or was there really something in those woods with us? All I know is that I've never felt a fear like that before, and I hope I never do again. Some places hold on to their history, and some histories are best left undisturbed. Thanks for listening to my story. It's one I don't tell very often. If you enjoyed it, or if you've had a similar chilling experience, let me know down in the comments. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content. Stay safe out there, and maybe think twice before exploring an abandoned cemetery. See you in the next one.